Okay, so it is Saturday night. Time to show up. I'm showing up. I'm glad you showed up. I appreciate every last one of you. Do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all of that happy horse shit. And let's just jump into this. What I want to talk about this week is game assets. Now, as you may have noticed, I've been talking about I need to start worrying about building new assets for my game in place of the placeholders. Now, what I've got going on right now is, well, it's mostly, I started off with just like random crap that I threw together. Like I just kind of dashed off this bush in Clip Studio Paint. Didn't take long. I didn't work very hard on it. And then I drew a tree, and then I needed a blue orb, so I drew a blue orb. And I needed a tile for the grassland, so I made a tile. And obviously, I also used the Gato icon for one of my placeholders in there. And the thing is that let's kind of sort of center this at least. And the thing is that when you have a whole lot of placeholder graphics to put in to your game, it is generally a good idea to turn to pre-built assets. And I have a fair number of pre-built assets because I buy them constantly. This isn't even the complete collection. And what I have here is over 30 gigs of graphics and animations and models and sound effects and music. That this particular folder is stuff that I've downloaded from, well, mostly from Itch.io. That's the main place that I got most of the stuff that's in this folder. And in particular, I have a whole lot of stuff that I bought from different studios. You can see here that I've got folders for Joel Studler Music and PVGames, which is Pioneer Valley. I've got Visual Stella, I've got Galefire RPG, I've got Dream Circle, and you can see that some of these are tagged with credit because you really need to read the license files that come with your assets. When you buy assets, you will get a license agreement, and that license agreement will tell you what your rights are. And you have to read this because it has all of the terms for what you are legally allowed to do with it. And in this particular case, Visual Stella, along with other people, they require that I give them credit in the credits to my game. I'm supposed to add a copyright notice for the people who made the graphics. And I have called that out in the folder name because you need to know that before you decide whether you're going to use a particular group of graphics. There's also the question of, I haven't actually looked at this part of the license agreement. Let's see. You can only use the project for game creation and project-specific advertising media. This is important because you couldn't use this to make like a poster, okay? You couldn't use it to make a poster that you were going to use to advertise anything except a game that uses these graphics. They own the intellectual property. You must be a legitimate user. Solely used for the creation of your game, you can edit, process, and modify the materials contained in the resource pack. Okay? Don't sell, distribute, lease, or transfer. Don't make NFTs, blah, blah, blah. No hate speech, no harmful propaganda, all that kind of thing. But the important thing here is that I have this asset that I cannot use for creating anything that isn't a game. Which means technically they could come after me for talking about their graphics in the use of a game. This video isn't a game. Technically, I don't have a license to show you this stuff, and I'm doing it under the auspices of fair use, which I understand fairly well. But the whole thing here is that we have all of these different gun graphics, that can be used in the creation of your game, but you couldn't use any of these to, like, advertise a convention or something. You have to use them within the context of a game. I don't have any use for a gun in my game at the moment, so I'm not going to be using that. But the important thing to recall on that is you need to read the user license agreement. It tells you what you can legally do with it. And it's the same way with, if you back up here, you can see that Dream Circle also needs credit. Galefire RPG needs credit. Joel Studler Music does not. Joel Studler's music packs, he has this thank you, and the thank you just says, hey, go use this stuff. And there's a readme.txt, and it doesn't actually have anything in it except saying that there's a difference between OGG and M4A files. But you can see in the license here, I hope this enables you to tell great stories, blah, blah, blah. And this music was specifically purchased to use as a game asset. So there's no requirement here to give credit. And because there's no requirement to give credit, he didn't ask for it. He doesn't get it. So, well, it's not that he doesn't get it. He probably understands that he didn't ask for credit. But because he hasn't asked for credit, I don't have to give him credit. And that's useful because maybe I don't want to put all of these credits. It's hard to manage all of that. It's hard to manage all of the different people that have contributed to your project in one way or another, and all of these people that need credit. As you expand the number of those people, then your credits get longer and longer, and it looks like you just bought a bunch of stuff off of the market, which you did, but you don't want it to look that way. And also, there are specific feelings. Like if I use the Visual Stella graphics alongside of Pioneer Valley Games stuff, like let me come down here and grab, I don't know, some kind of background. Okay, so if I was using these medieval ruins and I put next to that one of the Visual Stella guns, or let's use one of their jewelry options. If I pull up one of these gems don't really have the same visual style as this piece of scenery. So that's kind of jarring. They kind of clash with one another. And that's one of the reasons that you want to go and get a lot of stuff that is, well, you want to get a bunch of things that are from the same studio, just because they're going to have consistent visual styles. Like here's the Medieval Underdeep Dwarf, and this dwarf character is going to fit thematically with other characters. Like if we come over to Medieval Townfolk, the Male Farmer, those fit together reasonably well. They have a similar visual style, and it's not jarring to switch from one to the other. Also, you'll see that they have pretty stock poses. But I really like Pioneer Valley Games. I like PVGames because they have a great license. And part of that great license is, if I open up the README file in Word, you can edit the images for your project, you can use the resources for non-game projects, and you can use the resources in any commercial or non-commercial project that you see fit. You just cannot resell or distribute the resources freely, either as they are or edited versions. So that's a really great license, and that's typically a good sign of somebody who's making assets, not because they're trying to make money, although they are, but because they are trying to help people do the stuff that they're doing. They understand that you're not buying the graphics, you're buying what you can do with the graphics. And if you don't let people do anything with the graphics, they're not going to buy your graphics. And in this particular case, if you look at my game, what I'm using is, for the player, I've got to open up the scene for the player. For the player, I am using a sprite sheet that is actually renamed from the assassin base, is what I started with here. And the assassin base has a huge number of sprites. Like, if you actually pull all of the individual animations out, we've got 4 sheets of them, and within these 4 sheets, we've got 2,072 different frames of animation. Obviously, you don't want to do this, especially if you're not an artist. That's a lot of fucking work. That's a lot of animation. You do not buy this particular pack, which, if I remember right, this is in volume 2, I think. So let's grab the PVGames site over on itch.io, and we'll scroll down here. Hold on. Now scroll down here and we will find this particular collection. This is in Character Pieces Volume 2. Okay, it's got 8 characters and outfits, 4 male and 4 female. And the ones that it's got, does it actually list them? I don't think it does. But let's see. No, it doesn't have a list of what they are. However, I have obviously saved the original archives here. So we've got, this is 2.5D Character Pieces Volume 2, and that includes the Elven Archer, the Assassin, the Battle Guard, and the Beastmaster in both male and female versions. And you see that it has its own license file, but it's the same license file. It hasn't changed much. It's clearly changed a little bit, and it's probably changed in terms of the contact info. I expect that's where the change is, but it still has the same terms of use and everything. And you need to read that, and you need to know what's in it, because that's important. So in this particular case, what I've got for PVGames is I've got the Assassin base, which is loaded up into my Clip Studio Paint for being edited, but I'm only using the first sprite sheet. And what I've done is I've renamed that to Pantsugami.png. You can see right there. And that's just a renamed version of the same thing. If I open this, you can see that it's the same file. It's 3,840 by 4,000 pixels. And if I come over here to Clip Studio Paint, then you can see up here it's 3,840 by 4,000. Okay. And the way that you want to work with stuff like this, if you scroll in, if you zoom in rather, like if I zoom in on this, then you can see that we've got the individual frames of walking downward, and there are 8 of those, and then we've got the 8 frames of walking to the left, and then the 8 frames of walking to the right. And then on the next row, we have the 8 frames of walking up, and then we have the diagonals. We have down and to the left, we have up and to the left, and then if we scroll all the way back over and down a little, we find that indeed we have down and to the right, and we have up and to the right, and then we have something else. We have running downward at this point. So we have all of the walking animations, and then we have all of the running animations, and we have those in 8 directions, and they're 8 frames each. Now, each animation that you get is going to have a sort of native frame rate, which is how fast it should be run. And Pioneer Valley Games does these things at what looks good at 30 frames per second to me. And that's important because if you buy other assets and they run at 60 frames per second, they're going to look funky alongside of the Pioneer Valley Games stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you have to match. But most importantly, what I really wanted to go over on this is when you look at these images, it's fairly clear that that what Jesse at Pioneer Valley Games has done is he's created a 3D model, and he's taken still images of that model at various stages of an animation from different angles. And he does this over and over again for lots and lots of different animations. Like you've got an idle information here where the character is standing with their hand on their hip, and you've got an animation here that looks like the character is standing. You got the character standing with both hands on their heads, one hand on their head. You've got all kinds of different standing and idle animations that you can switch among. And if you scroll way down here, you can see that you've got going into a kneeling posture. You can see that you've got lying on the ground. You've got sitting down, and all kinds of. There are various attack animations. Like right here is a kind of flailing strike animation. And there's a death animation farther down here. This is the death animation that I'm using. It's just 3 frames. And what I do is I run the animation forward, and then I freeze on the last frame and fade out the character. And this is actually exactly the same for the male character. The male assassin has the same bunch of animations. It's just a guy, and that's what I'm using for my enemy animations for the pervert.png. Which you can see right over here in the Groper scene. You can see that I've got pervert.png is right there, and it's the same 3840 by 4000. I'm just kind of rambling about this, but the thing about these is that to work with them, you need to edit the individual frames of animation. Like what I've got here is I've got the 4 different cardinal animations. I'm not using diagonals. And I've got those for walking and running, and then I have the idle animation, and I have the death animation. And that's all I'm using. That's all I'm using is those 4, okay? But using those 4 is, that's 32 frames of animation for the walk, and 32 frames of animation for the run, and then there's 12 for the, for the idle animation, and 12 for the death animation. I don't actually use the idle animation. It exists, but I'm not using it. It's just kind of there to serve no meaningful purpose. And you put all of that together, you have 88 frames of animation that I need to do to replace these graphics with my own graphics, because I don't want this 3D model in his underwear to be the final look and feel of the enemy in my game. I just don't want that to be the thing. I mean, it fits. There's a guy in his underwear chasing a girl in her underwear. That's thematically appropriate, which I find amusing, but I would really like to do something different with that. So I'm going to have to edit that. And there's an additional thing that I want to point out. I'm going to do something kind of inadvisable. I'm going to grab a particular archive, and I'm going to talk about it without having looked at it beforehand. The Animation Select series dark animation. Now you can see here that we've got a licensed text file in Chinese, that I can't read. And we've got a licensed text file just in like in English, and it's got all of the information about how to use it. So it's got all of the various terms of service. Retain all original ownership and copyright. Can be used without restriction for any other purposes. That's good. Can be used for monetary or non-monetary purposes. Freely edited and modified. May not be resold, published, or distributed. You have to include the following in your credits. So you have to include animation select dark at Dream Circle. This is why I'm unlikely to use any of these, because I don't just have to credit Dreams Circle in my project. I have to credit every single package I've used from them. So Dreams Circle ends up taking up a bunch of lines in my credits instead of just one. So I'm really unlikely to use any of these in my project. But because there's a native speed, because there's a native frame rate to everything, you want to use the 30 frames per second version so it will match with the with whatever you've got. And then we want to take this PNG file, and we're going to grab this as dark09 void. Let's take a look at that one. So this is what the void looks like, and I really don't like the look of it, but in any case, if we take this, if I copy it and I bring it over here and I go, let's create a new layer, and we'll put it underneath of the character layer and we'll paste it in there. The first problem is that the sizes don't match, okay? And the reason the sizes don't match is if I turn this one off right here, okay? If I turn that off, we can see relatively easily, if I come up here to grid filters, if I turn on the grid, and my grid is currently set to 100 pixels and 4 divisions, so you can see that I've got all of the little squares are 25 pixels apart, but that's not accurate. And what I actually want is for it to be something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of guess. This is, first of all, I want only one division. So if I do only one division, that's clearly too small. So let's try 200. 200 is too large. So let's go to our grid settings again, and we'll go 150. 150 looks a little small. You can see that the character is not quite in the center. It kind of drifts toward the side. So let's make this 175. If we make it 175, well, now he's drifting to the other side. So somewhere between 150 and 175, we'll make it 162. And still drifting to the side. Because it's drifting to the left, that's too big. So let's try 158. Nah, it's an even number of some sort. Let's try 160. Okay, perfect. That's exactly it. Now, if I scroll in on the one over here, that should work out. Now, I could obviously have gone in and counted everything and done the maths, but I didn't. So when I look at this, obviously these frames are very different sizes, and let's figure out what size these are. So let's come in here to View, Grid Ruler Bar Settings, and we're going to go, it's bigger, so let's try 200. That's too far, but not by much. I'm going to guess that it's 192 because that's a power of 2. And indeed, that looks like that's it. So these are 192 by 192. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to remove that layer. I'm going to remove this other layer here. I'm going to turn the main sprite layer back on, and we're going to once again set our grid settings to 160. And now we're going to come over here and we're going to go this 30 FPS dark. What we want to do is we want to count the frames, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And with 5 frames across times 160, we want to resize this. Change image resolution. Change image resolution, and it's currently 960. So let's change it to 800. Okay. And it'll resize. And once it's resized, then we'll Control A and Control C, and we'll pull that up. Now we will come in here, we'll paste it, drag it to the bottom, and now you can see that it's on top, that it's underneath of my character. And you can see how this would look like if we applied this effect to the character. And it's centered on the character, which is fine, okay? But this may not be what you actually want it to look like. Let me trash that, close out the dark attack, and we'll look at no, do not save. And let's grab a different one. It says dark 30. Let's go cast. What does cast look like? It looks like these are all... Okay, this is a good one right here. This is a cast from a circle. Now, if I come in here and I go edit, change image resolution, we are again going to make this 800. Okay. Control A, Control C. I'll come over here and we'll paste it in here, Control V, and you'll see that this is up too high. So we want to skew this downward. And if I, number one, it needs to be underneath of that. And what I'm checking here is I want to see whether this looks like it is the right angle. If I scroll in here, what I'm looking for is whether the center of the circle lines up properly. And I can just translate that a little bit, and that actually does look like it would line up pretty well. It doesn't line up with the run. It lines up okay with the walk. You can see there, if I put that where it belongs, it doesn't line up very well with the run. I guess it lines up okay. Yeah, I don't like how it lines up with the run animations. It looks like it's in the wrong place. If you put it where it looks right on the walk, it doesn't look right on the run. And it would have the same problem if I put it on one of the other animations. But you can see here that it does look more or less the same regardless of which animation you use it on. and it's a 30 frame per second animation. But I don't really like how this looks. It does seem to match in terms of perspective, but it doesn't look right in front, and it also doesn't look right behind. If you put it behind, then it looks like there are all of these particles streaming up in the front that are going behind the character. But if you put it in front, then it's covering the character's feet. Shouldn't be covering the character's feet. Little circle here that's supposed to be under the character is on top of the character's foot, which it shouldn't be. So that is not an asset I would be likely to use. Now, what you can do for something like this is you can split it into two pieces. You can split it into a piece that goes in front and a piece that goes in back, but that's a lot of work. So what I'm kind of getting at with this is you have to look at whether individual combinations of asset packs are going to work together, because you'll often find that they don't. Another good one is the Visual Stella packages really kind of don't vibe with the, if I come down here to the potions collection, if I come and I look at these potions right here, okay, those potions have a particular visual style. And that style is not at all a bad style. It's just that if you put it alongside, like if I were to use this with the Pioneer Valley Games Medieval Diseased Town, Medieval Town and Country Diseased, and I come over here and I go town pieces. I jump into the town pieces and I say, here's a building. That building does not have a coherent visual style with this potion, which looks way more cartoony. Holy crap. That sneeze just snuck up on me. Hold on a sec. But because these styles don't really match, it doesn't look right. You couldn't put this object on the porch of this house and say, yeah, that looks right. I mean, the visual style just doesn't jive. They don't fit well together. That's one of the reasons I have a whole bunch of PVGames stuff. And that's another thing. If you are, a lot of people have said this, but it does bear saying again. If you're trying to make money in the games industry, you can do a lot worse than selling assets. Selling assets is a really good way to do that, and if I come over here to the PVGames page on Itch.io right here, you can see that these various packs, they sell for a good amount of money. Now, I don't have the Other Worlds or Cyber packs, but I do have all of the Northfolk stuff, which you can see here is $12, $15, and $3. So that's $30 right there. The backgrounds are free. You can get those, and that's kind of that lost leader. I don't have any of the Doomsday tiles, but I have the Snow and Ice, the Scorching Sands, the World War II stuff. the nature, the medieval buildings, all of the character pieces, and I've got a bunch of other stuff. The Daemonum Infernum. I think I've got the Apex Predators. 2.5D. I don't know. I may or may not have the Apex Predators. It doesn't look like I do. I've got a whole bunch of this medieval stuff. I've got a whole bunch of the Underdeep stuff, the medieval bosses, and the medieval heroes. I think I've got the medieval townsfolk. Yeah, I got the townsfolk. So it's like, here's all the townsfolk and whatnot, and that is, once again, whole bunch of animations, whole bunch of assets. And you can tell from looking at this that I've given more money to PVGames for stuff that I am not using or doing anything with than I give to the average game developer. People are more likely to buy your stuff if they can use it to make their own stuff. That's just the way stuff is. So if you're looking to make good money in the games industry, selling assets is a good way to do it. Building and selling assets. And I don't know how useful any of this has been, but you know that's par for the course in any of my videos. And anyway, what I'm getting at here is that it will be easier for me to just paint over these sprites to produce my animations than it would be for me to build my own model, do my own animations, start from scratch every time. Although I am going to alter them rather significantly, pretty substantially. Now you can put together one of the neat things about PVGames stuff is that you can fairly easily put together a pretty detailed character. Like if you look here, you look at this sprite sheet here. This sprite sheet is nothing but the shirt. But if I copy it and I paste it over top of the sprite, you see now she's wearing the shirt. And I can do the same thing with, I can jump into here and I can go the assassin bottom. I can grab sprite sheet 1, I can drag it into Clip Studio Paint, I can Control A, Control C, and I come onto my sprite sheet and I can paste that in. Now I probably want that to go underneath of the top. And you can see here that I've just put clothes on this particular character. This is a great way to do all of your stuff, and you can mix and match. If you go in here and you go, well, I don't really want the assassin top on this girl, but what I want is I want a different shirt. So let me jump up here to one of the other ones. Let's say I like the female knight or the female mage. That would work. And if we go mage top. I come over here, I grab sprite 1. I grab that. I come in here, I paste it. Why did that not show up? Control A, Control C. Now we'll Control V, and now we've got this robe with the assassin pants. And you can also come in here and you can color cycle. You can do all kinds of stuff. Like I can add a correction layer for hue, saturation, luminosity, and I could go, well, I don't want that to be that color. I want it to be a different color. And I don't know why it's altering the whole thing. It's because I was adding the whole layer. So I can go layer. Let's go edit, tonal correction, hue, saturation, luminosity, and let's go just the robe. Let's modify that to be more of a green. Let's make it a deeper green. Let's make it not quite so bright. Pull that down, and we'll give her kind of a dark green coat. And you can do all kinds of stuff like this and modify the sprites. And that's within your license, and it's totally cool, and it all fits together. And it would be fairly easy for me to just, like, assemble something out of this. It's not going to be perfect, though, because, like, if I jump into my Clip Studio Paint folder, if I come over to Pictures, Clip Studio, and I jump into the various OCs, then I've got a picture of Ichigo, my current. This is the current character that is being added to the game first. And I don't think they have exactly what I want here. They may have the boots, but they're not going to have the one stocking and the garter and the black skirt and the little crop top with the orange underneath it. They're probably not going to have the pink hair. But I have a base to work from. And what I can do is I can paint over top of that, and I can give the, if I turn this off, and I come down here and I add a new layer, what I can do is I can grab a paintbrush and I can just go, okay, here's a paintbrush. I'm going to use the horsehair brush. I'm going to use black, and I'm just going to go, there's a black skirt. And you can't actually see the stocking on this, so we'll come over here and we'll do, all right, let's do a little brown boot right here. Can't really see it on there. Let's do the crop top. Go up here and we go, yeah, there's a shirt there and shirt there, shirt there. And put all of that in place, and then I grab a kind of light orange right around this area, a little bit brighter than that, a bit more red, more saturated, something like right around there. I give her that little orange bit right there, and then I can grab a fairly bright pink. I can give her the pink twin tail look. And I can just add that over top. And then I've got something that is beginning to approach the look and style that I'm looking for. Although skin tone doesn't exactly match, and the color doesn't tonally match. I should come in here and fix that. And what I end up with here is a single sprite that doesn't take all that long to do, but that more accurately represents the character that I'm trying to produce. And then what I'd want to do is I would want to zoom in on this, and I would want to improve the I'd want to improve the general look and feel here. Like I want more of that orange in here, and we want to do some various improvement in here. Let's try to get something approaching a visual style here. Try and do a little bit of shading. There's a bit of there's the foot back there, and that actually needs to be boot color. So put that in there. And now at scale, this begins to look more like my character. And that is more of a matching sprite for what I'm thinking of and how I want this particular game to look. And if I turn around and I turn off the sprite, then I actually have something that could be included in the game, and it wouldn't look terrible. It'd look okay. It won't look as good as the Pioneer Valley Games sprites, but using that as a base, the only thing I'm using it for is the animation base. I'm using it for the animation frames, and also for the shadow. I don't really need to use it for the shadow. I could do a much easier and simpler shadow, but I'm probably going to paint in the shadow on top of that. And anyway, doing that 88 times isn't going to take all that long, and I'll get better at it as I go. And it's not going to look great when it first starts out, but you can iterate over it and you can improve it bit by bit until you have sprites that you're happy with and sprites that you can work with. But again, just I recommend picking up a bunch of assets in bundles and on sale if you can, because it's a good idea to collect a whole bunch of them. And I actually have way more than that. Let me jump over here and go to my jump over here and jump into my archive, and there we go. There's the stock folder. Here's an additional folder that I keep stock footage in, and you can see it's still counting up, and it's gone over 190 gigs. It's a tremendous amount of stuff, and no, I don't want the entirety of archive. I just want stock. Yeah, just the stock folder. There we go. Not the whole thing. It's still a tremendous amount of stuff. No, that's still just... Okay, yeah. So that's the stock folder right there. Okay. And it's still counting up. I thought it was a little bit ridiculous that it had gotten over 200 gigs that fast. It usually takes longer to get there, and I'm not 100% sure that it goes much higher than 200, but it was going way too fast. So yeah, it's a tremendous amount of stuff. I have been collecting stock footage, stock photos, stock icons, stock graphics, music, sound effects, video, all kinds of shit for a really, really long time. This is actually bigger than I thought it was. I'm surprised it's apparently going to go over 300 gigs. Yeah, 309 gigs. That's not bad. And this game assets over here is actually assets that I specifically purchased to go into the games that I've been working on lately. So, yeah. We've got about 31 gigs of specifically game assets and another 309 gigs of other assets, which do include assets that could be used in games. I think I've got a few other folders too. I'd have to look around. Yeah, I've got a I've got a game art bundle here, which is it's not that big. It's only 17 gigs, but it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff. And I highly recommend that you collect a bunch of these assets and just like keep them around. It's a lot of money, but you spend it over time instead of all at once. And as you can see, I've got all of these assets that I've bought over all of these years, and the money's gone out the door to people who make the assets, but I haven't produced an actual game with this stuff. And most of it I'm never going to produce an actual game with. Let me refocus. Like the Visual stuff, I don't like the look of it. It doesn't look that great. I don't think I want that visual style in my games. And if I'm not going to put that visual style in my games, then all of that stuff is just kind of sitting there and I'm never going to use it. But that happens, you know. You see an art bundle and they say, "Hey, you can get all of this stuff at a good price." You go, "Well, fuck it, I'll throw $50 at that," and you throw $50 at it, and most of it's worthless. There's some useful stuff in the Visual Stella archive, but it's mostly useful for the kind of thing that I'm not doing. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly good. I just, you know, I'm not doing anything of that nature. I don't. If you look at the jewelry, let me pull this up. If you look at their jewelry collection, I expected when I got the jewelry collection that it would be more than just the gems, you know, and we've got all of these individual gems, but there are no bracelets, there are no necklaces, there are no rings. I did not get what I thought I was getting. This little blue gem right here is fairly close to the blue orb that I'm using, but I wouldn't use it. It's the wrong perspective. It's not the way that I want it to look. But anyway, that's what I have to say this week. And again, do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. And okay, bye.